Welcome to the Nurtured Nerds Epic Podcast.
Come join us and get cuddly, get gaming, get nerdy, and
get nurtured.
Welcome everyone. This is the podcast where we ask what you are nerdy about and how does it contribute to your wellness. So join us today as we explore ways to level up connection and nurture your real life adventures. We are at episode 30, I believe, which is amazing. So celebrate. Yes. We are definitely nerding out today on surrogate partner therapy. I'm very excited about this topic. We will also talk about some more nerdy things, some more cuddly things, and let you know what's currently going on in the community. We do have a care package that we love to share about. That is a raffle for any new members. And remember, this is a free community, so you're welcome to join us. And when you do, you get potentially listed for this raffle. And that includes gift cards, lots of opportunities to connect with us. So please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Please join us on YouTube here and know that we want to hear from you. Okay, so today, let's get started. We're going to start off by just kind of introducing ourselves. I'm Crystal. I'm going to be the co-host today with the fabulous Alyssa. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Alyssa, also known as the IRL support main, the creator of Nurtured Nerds. And I practice professional cuddling, and I also practice shamanic energy medicine. I trained with the Four Winds for that, and for cuddling I trained with Cuddlist and Cuddle Sanctuary. And I am drinking, oh shoot, I didn't bring it with me. I got out another packet to show. It's a Bigelow Calm Stomach. It's peach and ginger. It's really good. Yeah. What about you, Crystal?
Love it. I am Crystal. I'm located here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've been doing professional cuddling in both one-on-one and group sessions for I think it's almost 6 years now. It just feels like time flies. Since about 2018. I am grateful to say I've trained with a bunch of fun entities and hope to continue spreading the word and continuing training in as many modalities as I can, which, by the way, I'm fascinated and interested in the surrogate partner work as well. I am drinking a Purgatory margarita today. That is not tea. And I didn't start it yet. So I have not partaked in any of this bliss, but I just finished a shift. And so I have that ready for me when I'm ready.
Nice.
Yes. And Mary, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Mary. I am currently in Panama living the retired life. It's raining because it's very much the rainy season right now. So if my power goes out, you may understand why, but I'll try to get back as soon as I can. I was certified with Cuddle Party in 2014 and Cuddlist in 2015. And I've taken a lot of other adjacent type of training kind of experiences in the meantime. And I am currently the president of the board of Cuddle Party. So yeah, so it's a
Congratulations.
fun thing that's going on. Lots of cool things going on there. And I am drinking Darjeeling today with sugar and cream.
Darjeeling.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, black tea.
Ah, good stuff. Good stuff. Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little about what you're drinking today?
Unfortunately, I didn't bring my glass back with me. I'm Michelle Renee. I'm in San Diego, California, and I am a professional cuddler, surrogate partner, and intimacy guide. My training started at Cuddlist in 2015 also. And I certified with Cuddle Party in 2016. So we have some overlap there. And then I added surrogate partner training in 2018, but really started practicing, ironically, I don't know if that's the right use of the word. Right before COVID hit, I started seeing clients when I was living in Baltimore at the very beginning of 2020. So yeah, it's kind of just all been a big evolution. but I'm not drinking anything today. So if I get a dry throat, I'm going to have to pop out and grab the cranberry juice that I left on the counter.
I love that.
And my water too.
We invite self-care.
Yes. And we also have Doug with us. Doug, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us if you're drinking anything?
I guess I'll start with the tea first. I've got some mint tea. It's pretty boring, but it's my Lilo and Stitch mug, Ohana, and
Gotta take a sip first.
yeah, and I am a licensed therapist in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've been practicing since 2010, and I'm interested in attachment in all of its forms, which sort of forms the basis of my understanding of human suffering and recovery. I do a lot of work with people recovering from emotionally abusive relationships.
Wonderful. So glad to have you with us.
Yes, thank you, Doug.
You're welcome, Crystal.
Doug and I hail from the same area. We are in Pittsburgh together, so I'm so grateful to see you again.
All right. So Gita, I think this is a great idea. Gita says that we should talk a little bit before we get into the future. I want to look at the past a little bit. So what first got each of you into cuddling, or into, for Doug, the field that you're working in? How did you hear about it? How did you hear about events? I know, Mary, you've shared about this before, and Crystal as well. So maybe if Michelle, if you want to go first, or Doug.
Sure, I'll try to keep it as concise as I can with enough nuggets of like to follow the map. But I had like a 20-year relationship end that was unhealthy, Doug. So I totally relate to that. And I did a lot of my work actually through my personal work through working as a cuddler. When I got out of that relationship, I was really working on my own sexual identity and how to have better pleasure and whatnot. And I ended up working with a woman named Betty Dotson, who was teaching masturbation. She was 85 at the time, real badass. And in that place of working with her, I realized I really loved the idea of doing hands-on sex ed. And so that was in November of 2014 when I took her workshop. And then in the summer of 2015, I went to Sex Geek Summer Camp because I thought, well, that'll be a place where I can meet a bunch of sex educators and figure out who do I want to be when I grow up? Because I was coming out of the marriage as a stay-at-home mom with an accounting background, and the thought of going into an office just made my skin crawl. And so I went to camp, didn't figure anything out other than the fact that I'm really introverted. And but I did meet great people. And in one of those conversations post camp, we were talking about this up and coming field of professional cuddling and how to get into it. And our Cuddlists had just started, and they were offering free training if you were in Chicago or New York. And I was living in West Michigan. So it was just a matter of saying, yeah, I'll drive to Chicago. It was like 2 or 3 hour drive. Walked into Madeline Guanazzo's condo and walked out certified. It's so not how it is now. Yeah, it was quite the thing I remember learning the most about, which stuck with me. I should say the thing that stuck with me the most was like the importance of taking money for our work, because it really helps set the container, right? So then fast forward, I was the sex geek cuddler, and people were asking me sex questions, and eventually it was, can you help me out with this sexual issue I'm having? And I was like, yeah, I can. It's, not per our world so much to do that, but I did it, and I felt so much gratitude and like appreciation for being part of this person's journey and helping them regain a part of their life that had kind of fallen to the wayside. It was an older man who, had questions. He didn't ever have sex ed. He didn't understand masturbation, like all these things that were coming up. And I got to help him through that. And I was like, oh, I really like this work. Maybe I should move into a more erotic realm. And so I picked up surrogate partner therapy training after that. So that's how I got here.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. That's a really interesting journey.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's it. It's definitely something that I don't think before I I saw your shares. I was even remotely aware of what it was. And so I'd love to, for all the listeners, for all the people who don't know, and I'll be candid, I feel like I'm still learning, is there a way that you can define or sum up and include maybe some of the history of how surrogate partner, therapy got started, maybe some of the legality issues that it faces, anything that you're open to sharing about that can help us.
Well, I could talk about this for hours and we don't have hours. So the quickest version of this is it started with Surrogate Partner Therapy started with Masters and Johnson back, I think, like 60s. They were working with primarily cis men in heterosexual marriages that were dealing with sexual dysfunction. So erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation. And they would work with the husband and wife, teach them sensate focus, use that to hopefully work out the issues in the bedroom. They would go to like St. Louis for this and stay for, a week or something and then fly back. Well, what happens when you're a single man and you have those issues, right? Then they started to bring in what they called sex surrogates at the time. And they're most likely sex workers that came in and served as that surrogate person since they didn't have a partner to go through the exercises with. That world, was proven to be pretty effective, but it never really took off. And I think part of that was because we hit the AIDS epidemic in the early 80s, right? And a lot of people got out of the work. To where we are today in 2023, I'll say that sex surrogate, the term sex surrogate is no longer really applicable. We work more so in relationship skills than we do on getting people to penis and vagina sex, right? We don't, that's not our focus. It can be part of the work for some people. Some people have different boundaries around the work. I think of cuddling as kind of the lowest form of platonic surrogate partner therapy. Like as far as it's like that without the structure, right? And so it was a natural progression to go from cuddling to adding surrogate partner therapy. Surrogate partner therapy can include erotic contact. It's not illegal anywhere in the United States. The reasons that is because it's never transactional. So a client can't come in and say, here's $200, I want XYZ, and you're going to perform that thing for me, right? If erotic contact happens, it's in the context of the therapeutic container and it's in agreement with all parties and the price doesn't change. That's kind of the basics of why surrogate partner therapy is not considered prostitution. That said, I, in a few surrogates I know, have changed our boundaries around where we're willing to go with clients because, the truth of the matter is I do sex work and I do sex work at a much higher rate than what you charge for surrogate partner therapy. And I don't feel like that energy that is expended going into erotic work is compensated in a way that feels good to me. So I'd rather just not make it part of surrogate partner therapy work because I think that the meat of that work is really before you even take your clothes off. So I don't see that we're losing that much value by changing my boundaries. Will my clients see it that way? I don't know. I'm probably not the right surrogate for a lot of people. But here's the beauty of it. I think of surrogate partner therapy, SPT, that partner could be surrogate person. It's like being the surrogate. I wrote it down earlier. The surrogate partner in relating, whatever that relating is. It doesn't have to be in a romantic sexual relationship relating. I know Crystal's doing some great work in cuddling. We have a mutual client that is doing the same kind of work. We're just not technically under the surrogate partner label. But when I talk about my work as a surrogate partner with my cuddle colleagues, they go, well, that sounds like cuddling. And when I talk about my cuddling with my surrogate partner colleagues, especially the more complicated cases, they go, well, that sounds like surrogate partner therapy. And so they go hand in hand, especially when you start to change what your boundaries are in the work.
I can relate wholeheartedly to that. Sorry to interrupt, Mary. You can.
Yeah, I was just going to say that validates my impressions without having done a lot of research or knowing, the work very well at all. But I was like, it's got to be a lot of what we do in cuddling in surrogate therapy just thinking about it, logically.
Yeah, if you take a cuddleist session, which is, I say cuddleist because it's the only training I've had, and I really appreciate the fact that it's client led. If you take that structure and you add wheel of consent, that is phase one of my work. Absolutely. Like that, I presented on a case at ASEC, which is the American Association of Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. I presented a case at their conference this year, and it was a case that we never took our clothes off. We finally got to cuddling, like spooning, like full on, full body contact. And then he felt complete with the work. He was ready to go back to dating. It was about helping him have a place to find safety in his own body, right? It wasn't, yes, he presented with ED issues, but he didn't need to practice sex with me. He needed to learn how to be safe in his body because of his history, right? And he was coming out of a divorce. He didn't have the safety of that previous relationship, and he didn't know how to really create that for himself in the dating world.
Yeah, I certainly can resonate with that. And just to touch on something you had said about, this being work that can really help with relating to any partnership. I really think that the work, that we do in the cuddle world, has very much helped me with being a parent, and has helped me honor my children better, honor their consent, and just be more present. So I always use presence. Cuddling is like a cheat code for presence and mindfulness and just being together. And I feel very in alignment with a lot of the things you said, but especially the concept that this can help with all interpersonal relating. So thank you so much for that share. Again, to touch on what Mary said.
Yeah. Last thing, surrogate partner therapy is always done in a triadic model with a therapist and the practitioner and the client. Usually in traditional surrogate partner therapy, especially surrogate partner therapy that's going to include sexual contact or could include sexual contact, it is reserved for single clients, almost 100% of the time, with few exceptions, because it would be very disruptive to an established relationship, especially an established monogamous relationship. But again, with this expanded definition of what it means, I don't think that is necessary when you're sticking to the platonic side of the work.
Doug, would you like to speak to this at all about your experiences around working in this kind of model, or do you work in this kind of model, the triadic model?
I have not actually. Okay. I'm a client of Crystal's at her Cuddle Socials.
Got it. Okay.
And that so this was all. I really discovered attachment as a core idea in psychotherapy after my divorce, and coming to understand how my attachment wounds played into my former relationship with my ex-wife. And so I tried cuddling at the Cuddle Socials as an experiment to see how that would feel, right? Because it was definitely something out of my comfort zone. I'm a recovering square.
I love that term.
Yeah, I am also from a severely repressed family. We Northern Europeans, we don't feel feelings, right? So yeah, I'm aware of surrogate partner therapy, but I haven't had any clients who have done it. And I'm very curious at this point because for what it's worth, as a cultural statement, I see there's a continuing breakdown in all relationships of all sorts in the United States in particular, maybe across the world for all I know. But in the United States, people don't know how to relate to each other as humans anymore. And attachment and cuddling is a good way to get some foundational changes about relating.
Well said.
Definitely.
So, and this is for everyone, whether you're in this work or not, but do you see this becoming mainstream, something that is more commonly known and accepted, or do you think that it will stay a little more in the shadows, a little more hush-hush kind of attitude around it?
Is that for cuddling or surrogate partner therapy, or both? Or
I almost kind of see these two things co-evolving, and I feel like they are very closely tied together. And so definitely speak to both of those if you feel like that makes sense to you.
Yeah, does anybody want to go first? I feel like I've taken a lot of space.
Yeah, I had a comment that came up for me. I remember speaking about to a therapist friend of mine about like the triadic model and working as a cuddlist or a surrogate partner with a therapist, and he is a certified relationship therapist. He did not know what the triadic model was. I had to look it up and give it to him, and I was like, wait, I thought this was a thing in therapy, but maybe I guess not. So
No, they don't learn it in
new.
school. They don't learn it in
Okay.
school. They probably haven't heard of surrogate partner therapy in school. I've been lucky enough to do some, I just talked to a class up at Widener up in Philadelphia. They have a class of people going through their graduate programs. It some people know about it and some don't, but they definitely don't understand or know. When you say triadic model, it's like just glazed over. It's not in their vocabulary, which is
so weird.
It's an interesting space, because it used to be that we called them supervising clinicians, and now we call them collaborating clinicians, because we have moved away from the hierarchy of that. Of like, the idea when I went through training in my head was that the therapist would tell me everything to do and I would just perform as requested, right? And the reality of it is that we come with different backgrounds, and almost every therapist I've worked with has never worked with a surrogate partner before. And I know they haven't worked with a cuddler before, because that's a much newer modality. And so I'm teaching them. Like, there's a lot of trainings out there to help them, and sometimes I get really fortunate and they do invest in getting more training before we start. A lot of times I'm helping them through the process, and a lot of times I just have a lot of experience around talking about sex and sex ed, and that's my geekiness, right? That's where I nerd out. And so I've had therapists say, like, I learned more from you than I learned from my supervisor, like, because it's just a different, we're connecting over something different. So we say collaborating now, because we're coming to it as more peer-to-peer, even though I don't have letters after my name, right? Like, it's not top down anymore.
That's really good to know.
Yeah.
And that seems like a really good evolutionary step, that it's becoming more mutual and more equal in terms of like the authority or the responsibility. Like you were saying, you were expecting to be told what to do, what to perform, and like figuring out, oh, like actually maybe I need to lead, or maybe we'll both lead equally. So that's really good to know.
Yeah. But to go back to your original question, like, I think that, well, history and Cuddlist is like back in 2019, a few of us went to Psych Networker, which is a huge therapy conference in DC. Highly recommend it. It's my version of Comic-Con, because that's where my nerdiness is. Like, it's awesome. And we showed up, me, Madeline Guanazzo, and Mariam Brown showed up with all the local cuddlists that we could round up, to, like, hit the lobby with all of our cuddlist t-shirts, did a lot of like guerrilla marketing. Three of us attended the conference, but the rest of them kind of just hung out in the lobby and tried to schmooze a little bit. And that was our first attempt to really like break into like the therapeutic world. And, fast forward, this last summer, Keely Shoup from Cuddlist was part of a presentation on somatic work. Like, it was a surrogate partner, a cuddler, and a sexological body worker who is also a somatic sex educator. They did a presentation on working with touch workers for sex therapists. I presented there with a case around surrogate partner therapy. Like, we are working from the inside to really spread the word so that we can start having more of these collaborations. So I don't see us going anywhere but like up, like in a really rapid, maybe not rapid in the like, hold on, it's going to go fast. Maybe not that rapid, but I'm trying my damnedest. And every time I talk about surrogate partner therapy, I'm always talking about professional cuddling. They just go hand in hand to me. And a lot of times people don't have surrogates in their area. It's a really good opportunity for me to introduce the therapist to the professional cuddlers in their area that I know and can say, yeah, I think that they are a really good match. You should contact them, right? It's a way to slowly kind of pull people into our worlds in a, I don't know, as they need it, they come looking for it. And I'm like, here you go. I'm the new director of training at Catalyst, and my vision is for us to get into more of this clinical work as like the next, after we get this new training figured out, we get this new certification figured out, the next thing on my plate is to figure out how we can train the ones that want to get into the more clinical side of the work, so that we feel really confident that we can send people to them and that they know what to do. It's not quite the same as having a regular cuddle client.
It's really good to know that's where that training is heading, that there'll be even more what's the word, that it'll be like even more of like a professional kind of, I don't know, I can't find the word, but it's just like the scope of it is going to be even more
robust, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know, like what would you call it, like that additional layer of like clinical work added on it to your training. It just seems really nice to have that option, because some people want it to be more casual kind of work for their own practice. Some people want it to be more clinical. That actually speaks to me a lot. And I wasn't expecting that, but when you just said it, I felt this in my heart. Is like, oh, I want to explore that. So I'm glad to know that you're wanting to go in that direction.
We're really excited about it. We're really excited.
Yeah. And I do have to say, in my own communities, I have noticed that more and more people are saying, my therapist recommended I come to Cuddle Party, or recommended that I contact you. So that is really gratifying, that in the therapist community, they're starting to figure out who we are, and actually refer people to us, which is amazing to me. Doug, did you hear about it before it was your personal choice to go to something?
I saw it, I think, advertised on Crystal's Facebook page. So it was new to me when I discovered it.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for your presence today and every event. Thank you, Doug. And Mary, to speak to what you said, I actually have had a couple clients who have said the same thing, that they were recommended by their therapist. And I was very taken aback and very surprised and very grateful and just very honored. That's pretty magical and pretty impressive. Many of them had come from other areas prior to Pittsburgh. But to touch on something you said, Michelle, I'm in the Pittsburgh area, and it is a very medical community. And I started my journey in the psychology world, and I'm still working towards that degree. And so I've spent a lot of time kind of in academia and thinking in academic terms and trying to use that language, and almost attempting to really be sometimes even less authentic or hiding who I am because of that academic language. I think that in the clinical realm and the mental health world, our model of mental health is sometimes disempowering, or at least in the past it has been. And so what I'm grateful to hear, and what I kind of also see and envision, is just shifting that language, inviting more collaboration. And that is something that I've really pulled into my head and heart space as I have re-entered academia and retaken some classes and tried to continue to work towards my degree. And also as I've collaborated with all these wonderful people in these different avenues and areas. So it's exciting to hear that Catalyst is working towards that. And that is also a personal goal of mine here in Pittsburgh. And it kind of even answers the question I was going to start going into, but I would love to still fill into if anyone in the group wants to share just something that they would like to see. And you did touch on this, and I would love to hear more about it, Michelle. Where you would like to see it go in the future. You talked a little bit about your boundaries versus some other surrogate partners. And I would love to maybe, hear if you think that it should split, or if that there is, room for different avenues of surrogate partner work. Because I do feel personally in the cuddling world that I take a more therapeutic vibe as opposed to a more fun vibe, which can be just two different sides of the coin, And if anyone would like to speak on that.
Yeah, I also do the therapeutic vibe. Like when we talk cuddle positions, I'm completely lost. Like it doesn't show up in my space. So I'm just always like, I don't know. Like I don't, like when somebody comes in with positions, I'm like, I don't know what that is. You'll have to explain it. I lost my train of thought. That's it.
More
okay.
therapeutic vibe.
No, I was
Yeah.
confirming I do have a more therapeutic vibe in my space too, but I don't remember where the rest of my comment was going to go.
Yeah, I like to do more of the coaching, the talking, the working through stuff of like, how do you communicate? How do we communicate boundaries? How do we use your voice? That's my sweet spot as well. Like, and for me personally, I don't like to call it therapy, but I know a lot of people do, and I don't have a problem with that. But I call it coaching, and I'm like, if I just have a client that just wants to cuddle, that's not the right client for me, you know.
Mhm.
So it's like, no, I want to talk about what's going on and how being comfortable sharing, and because we are comfortable with each other, and we got that way because we communicated well, right? So that's kind of my approach to cuddling. And but that's also, I think, why I really prefer the group events to the one-on-one cuddling. For me, as my sweet spot of like, let me teach a group how to do this, and then I'll show you, I'll go around and talk to different people and see how you're doing and try to facilitate, different connections within the group. That's what I love to do. And I do sex education as well, in the sex positive group in Utah. Has been good for me. But I also think that is a tangent anyway. For me, I really like the group events is my favorite thing, but I love the coaching stuff of like teaching people and seeing the light shine, and they find who they are, and then they're more confident, and they have better connections, and that always makes me really happy.
I resonate with that strongly, Mary. I do enjoy the group events, and I enjoy the dynamic and the different amounts of healing that can kind of come from group events. And so going back to the original question, just to feel into it more, we were thinking about how or what surrogate partner therapy, how it could evolve into the future. And so I'm even curious about not only the idea of boundaries, but the idea of, the triadic model, the idea of group events or group education in that world. Anybody have any thoughts on where they would like to see it go, or what they would like to learn more about in that world?
This kind of goes back to what I remembered you said in the previous statement that I lost my thought, was this idea of like the different boundaries of surrogate partner practitioners. And the first question I asked when I started to question if I wanted to change my boundaries was, if I don't have sex with my clients, am I no longer a surrogate partner? Right. That was the question that I asked one of my colleagues who, Andrew Hartman, runs the Surrogate Partner Collective. And he said, no, I know other surrogates that have similar boundaries. And I was like, you do? Like, I felt like I was, again, back on an island. Like, this was like, becoming a professional cuddler in 2015, where I felt like I'm the only one doing it this way. And now I listened to an interview on an NPR station in North Carolina that played Friday, and one of the surrogates that was interviewed for that also has boundaries around genital contact. And I was like, oh, we're multiplying. Like, if we talk about it, I think we'll find that a lot of people have different boundaries, and that's really healthy for our industry, because it is all about us showing up as authentically as we can while still holding that "who is this for" hat. We're still the professionals in the room, and I think we have to be encouraged to honor what is feeling best for us, because that's how we model the same stuff that we're trying to do in our practices, whether it be in cuddling or surrogate partner therapy, or name your modality. We want to be good models of taking care of ourselves, or at the group events, right? I happen to be the opposite. I don't like group events, which is why I don't do cuddle party anymore. I really love the one-on-one, right? But it's also a coaching thing for me. And I think we all want to celebrate where we feel our best. And so I don't want us to become different factions per se, because what I don't want to shame the people that are doing the sex part of the work, because that's really important. And people are going to show up differently in a space where sex is on the table, right? And so it changes the experience, but it doesn't make it less. It's just different. And it's all about finding the right practitioner for you. And hopefully we'll have more and more of them out there, so that there's more to choose from to find the person that has the skill set that you need for whatever you're working on. But that said, you might come in with a sexual dysfunction issue. It does not mean that you have to have sex to solve it. it's that phase one of the work that I think always goes back to, like, that's the most important part of the work, and a lot can be solved in that space.
Yeah, oh, sorry, Doug's been waiting to talk. Go ahead, Doug.
Speaking as a therapist, one of the big issues with psychotherapy historically is its lack of body awareness as a profession. Psychoanalysis and Sigmund Freud actually has some very interesting lessons to teach us to this current moment. However, body awareness was not part of it. I'm primarily a Gestalt trained therapist, and in Gestalt, we talk about the difference between sensation and awareness. And so that someone might have a very healing sexual experience in whatever context. And if they don't understand how they created that, with their partner, with themselves, whatever the situation is, they can't necessarily reproduce it, right? And so that sensation, being more body aware, getting some sensation is actually really important, because there are folks who are desensitized. So that's another idea in Gestalt, that some people do not enter into the cycle of arising needs because they're desensitized from their needs. As we say, research is me search. So there we go. But that the whole process of body awareness is very essential to recovery from the Gestalt tradition, from somatic experiencing, from other emerging body aware somatic therapies. However, the awareness needs to be, or the sensation needs to be combined with an insight into what's actually occurring, so it can be reproducible and healing. And that right now in therapy, unfortunately, CBT rules the day, and that particular therapy in the hands of an unskillful practitioner will keep people very stuck. And I have many people make their way to my office after having failed out of, or had poor results, let us call it, poor results with other therapists and or therapeutic modalities. I myself, I got busted last week by a client who was like, I don't think we'll get into the emotional stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably true. But that, but that body awareness is a real shortcut to emotional awareness, because all emotions begin in the body. At least that's what I understand the research supports, and that's certainly a core understanding of dialectical behavioral therapy, which is one of my prime modalities also.
I think that kind of feeds into the comment that I was thinking of, was that when I explain what I do and how it's different from like a full sex worker, is that you're not paying me to have access to touch me. That's not what it is. I'm here to be with you and teach you things about how to communicate with a person, and I will connect with you in a way that feels authentic with me. And if I am holding your hand, or if I'm hugging you, or whatever it is, it's because I want to do that with that person. And only when it's authentic and we can both feel it is when you get the good results. Right. And as Doug was saying, like, if you know how to recreate that authentic connection in a platonic or sexual encounter, I think that is what we're teaching people. And it sounded like that was what you were saying, Michelle. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
I love that.
I always say, I have a sign in my office that says loving relationships, nature's order versus culture's order. And number one in nature is to create safety. And then that looks like, animals growling at each other to see, like, are you going to hurt me? How close can I get to you? Right. They do things to figure out if they're safe. And then if they're safe, they can get closer in proximity. And with closer proximity, the touch and sex comes pretty naturally. And then they have bonding and love. And in our culture, we do it exactly the opposite order, right? And so I have this there to remind myself to slow it down, get that safety established. And that's kind of my premise in a lot of, when sexual dysfunction shows up as, let's say, ED, one of my questions is like, how's your relationship? If you've got all the medical stuff figured out, that's not the factor, is there safety in your relationship? And so when we talk about the client case that I shared at ASEC, this client at 30 years old had memories of childhood sexual abuse come up. He was already married at that time. So he didn't experience sexual dysfunction in that relationship after having that memory come up. It was after they got divorced and he went out to create new relationships, was like, why doesn't this work? And I'm like, I got a hypothesis. I'm going to guess it's safety. And so that's what we did, was start to establish safety. He was completely numbed out, Doug. Like there was no feeling in his body. Not only that, he had been trained out of his yes and his no, so he couldn't identify what he wanted at all. And so we just, over the course of, I think, 8 months of work, slowly brought him back online. And like I would show up and he'd say, Michelle, I can feel my calves today. And it just slowly came up his whole body, but with the help of his therapist to be able to process all of that, those changes that were happening. We did, you guys, most of you are probably familiar with waking up the hands, right? And object sensei focus, basically. I pull out my bag of tricks, right? They get to pick out something to touch. I hand him, I think I handed this to him. I don't think he picked it out. I hand him a Hot Wheels car. And he gets flooded with grief of the childhood that he did not get to have. I did not plan that. I don't know if I would have done it on purpose. Like we got hit hard, and he got to work on that with his therapist. It was a great opportunity because then we got to keep coming back to that car and seeing how it changed for him as our work progressed, right? There's just lovely pockets of opportunity to connect with the body, with what we want, with our feelings in a way that is a little harder to do in just the talk therapy office. But I think both together is like supersized goodness.
That's fantastic. And I realize that I have been doing that work with my friends, with my sexual partners. Like
It's awesome.
I do that already, like let's create safety. We're enjoying each other. It's not about performance. It's not about what you think it should be. We're just having fun together. Like, and as soon as I can get that really across to them where they really trust me, it's so much better. And whatever performance things might or might not be happening don't matter, because we're just enjoying each other, and then we're safe. So yeah, I've had that.
Sounds like an expanded model of sex, getting away from, penis centered or whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. It's so much more, right?
Yeah.
Well, and going to the other side of this, that one of the very dark aspects of highly abusive people, predators are often very good at providing stimulation. They know how to press the buttons, and people often confuse intensity with intimacy. And in all sorts of emotionally abusive relationships, the sexual relationship can be very, very hot. And that leaves the target of the abuse extremely confused about what's happening, putting them into cognitive dissonance, making them much more manipulable by the predator. And so a hot sexual relationship might be an indicator of intimacy and good connection, but it also might be a byproduct of abuse. So without an exploration of what the nature of the relationship is, a self-reported good sexual relationship, or at least exciting sexual relationship, may not be significant in terms of overall health.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember recently that a lot of well, I can't even remember why I saw it, but it's coming up with saying that like feeling exciting, having your heartbeat faster, that people have thought, oh, that's Twitter patient. Oh, I love it. That means I'm in love. It's like, well, no, maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's your fear response. Like, and we need to listen to that. Like, that doesn't mean that you have to marry this person and be in love. That response is not the only thing you should be looking for a relationship, right? And it could be a reverse indicator, as Doug just said. So yeah, very confusing for our culture telling us that's what we want, but not.
Well, tying this into purity culture, I have noticed that many of the clients I treat who have been the longtime victims of highly emotionally abusive people, they married their first romantic partner, their first sexual partner. In no small part, this comes out of purity culture for Christians, but also other traditions also. And in which case, the person's experience of sexual excitement happened with their very first sexual partner. The predator hooks them and they're together. I have a client who was with her psychopathic husband for 30 years. He was the first boy she kissed, right? And so, and that, yeah, it's without some level of awareness of safety and intimacy, that there's a lot of dark things that can happen. And it's amazing. These human predators I had no awareness of until my own set of awakenings. So they're not well understood in the culture, and poorly understood by psychotherapists in general.
Mm.
Yeah, I married, my first husband was kind of a recreation of my parents' relationship, which was also unhealthy is the nicest way to call it. Yeah, and it took I mean, without being taught agency, right? If I could go back to my younger years of what do I wish that I'd been really taught, it would be like bodily autonomy and agency. My mother did not model that. It was very much in our household, a known fact, which is disturbing on itself, that my mother would wear extra clothes to bed to avoid contact with my father. There was a running joke that she wouldn't shave so that my dad wouldn't want to touch her. Rather than modeling that she got full say in what would happen with her body, we were taught to like avoid and, dodge and deflect, rather than actually just being like, I get to say what I want to happen to me, with me, around me, about me, right? Like I didn't get that. And I think that also, like, we could go into like parenting styles, right? Like I raised my kids when they were little with the whole like cry it out, right? That didn't help teach them co-regulation, right? That was not super helpful in retrospect. And I'm sure, the ways that I was treated as a child was like, if you were in trouble, you were sent to your room by yourself. And I have memories of screaming bloody murder. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you, when they would put me in this space. Do I go back to that space when I get activated now? Yeah, I have to fight real hard to not go there. And I remember for a lot of years, even in my current relationship, the first thing I'd want to say out of my mouth was, I hate you. Right. And it took a lot of work to start to correct that.
Thank you for both of those shares. Thank you for all of those shares. Those are very, very vulnerable and beautiful journeys that we've all been working through. So I really want to take a moment to honor that first off. And I really am in a super amount of agreement that the language surrounding consent, surrounding bodily autonomy, surrounding presence, surrounding connection has really, really been subpar, I guess is a word I could say, but there's been a lot of healing that we've all been doing together, kind of with and for I love to use the term generational healing, but I do see that what was passed down to me was toxic patterns. So I very much resonate with all of that. And that even touches into, Alyssa, some of your work in the shamanic realm. I just feel like there's so many paths and so many avenues. And I would love to hear if anyone has any thoughts on it. It's not a one size fits all. We talk about DBT, we talk about Gestalt. I was grateful enough to meet with Doug's Gestalt group and talk about cuddling. We talk about surrogate partner versus cuddling. We talk about the shamanic work. I just feel really strongly that we're shifting languages and that we are doing amazing work, but it is still something that's a work in progress. And I feel that every day as I attempt to, open my heart to partnership and explore new realms in that kind of, but of course, any thoughts, anything you want to share on that?
There's a never ending need, right? Like, I mean, we have generations of like what we know about attachment has changed so much that there is a never ending need for the kind of, modalities that we all offer.
Yeah. And some people may really, really understand or resonate with a certain language, whereas some people might, and this is something, that we kind of touch on a little bit, is like the fact that it can seem controversial to go to a cuddle therapist or to go to a sex therapist. There's still shame, around some of these modalities, and even just confusion, misunderstandings, not education. So if anyone has anything to touch upon about, things that have come up for you along those paths of trying to educate people or trying to raise awareness, I would love to hear. Any thoughts?
I always have them. I think that what I've found in all of my touch work is the best way to help educate people about the work is the stories of the people that have gone through the work. And yet not many people want to talk about their journey with us, right? So it becomes a really tricky situation to try to talk about it, but can't talk about it. But it's those anecdotal stories that really resonate to help people understand how either their client could show up in the work or how they could show up in the work. Because the thing is, there's no like cut and dry checklist of like, this is for you. If it's like, give me a person with relational struggles and I'll tell you how we could potentially be of service. That also feels like a one size fits all. And that doesn't feel good either. Like I get tired of being the Avon lady, knock, knock, I've got this thing to sell you. Of course, I think it's great because I'm selling it to you. But no, honestly, really, if we could have, once in a while, I get a client that is just really gung ho about talking about the work. And that's awesome. Once in a while, I get a therapist that's really gung ho about talking about the work. And that's awesome. The more that could happen, like the better we would all be.
And that brings up your Intimacy Lab podcast. I know that some of your intention is to bring about some more awareness from those other perspectives. And so I'm excited to see that and very much in alignment with that. So thank you for doing that.
Fingers crossed, right? Like I have to get those ones booked. But I keep asking clients, like, would you be okay if I talked about this? Even you don't have to be part of the conversation, but how would it feel? Because it's really hard to hear someone talk about you like that, even in the best positive light. It's hard for people. I'm used to it. People talk about me all the time, right? Like that I can come on and talk about all sorts of things. It doesn't bother me. I'm so used to doing this stuff. But for a client, even in I got busted, right? Like I made a big screw up with a client a couple years back, maybe second or third session. Something really exciting happened in our session. It was a cuddle session. And I went on Facebook and I talked about it without any identifying information, but I was like, this thing happened and it really resonates with my past. And like, this was so, such a great thing. And I didn't know she followed me on Facebook. So I get the text message of like, hey, and I'm really proud of her for speaking up and saying something to me. She said, that was really hard to see. And I said, oh my God, I just got excited. I totally screwed up. I'm going to go delete this right now. I'm so sorry. When we get together next time, if you decide to book again with me, I want to talk about it again there in that space. Fast forward, we're still working together. We're a couple years in now, right? This is a lot of relational work, like real reparenting work I'm doing with her. And I said to her, like, remember that time where I really screwed up? And she said, yeah. And I said, had anybody ever apologized to you before? And she said, never. No one had ever apologized to her before. So that was a huge, wonderful, great screw up, right? That it created an opportunity for repair. And we're still working together. And she's made so much progress. So it's like, yeah, sometimes we screw up and guess what? This is an opportunity. And that's what relationships are, right? I think it's a Gottman Institute that says the number one determining factor of divorce is how well do you repair? And, we could teach classes on apologies, right? Like I think Harriet Lerner has a newer book out about apologizing. And I thought somebody could read that and create a whole nother service, coaching people on how to have a real apology.
Yeah. And I think relationships are not as strong if you've never had to deal with something and then come back from it, right? If you have to deal with a breakdown and rebuild, then you're stronger. And like if you have a relationship where you never had to do that, you don't know how strong, you're probably not as strong as you could be.
No, there's no safety without conflict, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen if there's conflict. So then you never show up completely authentic because what happens if you can't have that difficult conversation? Right? Maybe we'll break up. And then once you have it and you're like, oh, we didn't break up. Well, next time it's going to be easier to do it again. Right. And then next thing you know, it's like not hard ever to have the hard conversations. And it's just part of your regular nervous system.
Plus it also reminds me of like the broken pottery thing where they put it back together with gold. It's like, it's more beautiful. Right. So,
Love it.
Yeah.
Well,
I love celebrating clients when they tell me something really hard. Like they're like,
Yeah.
they have so much shame around something. And then they finally feel that they can talk to me about it. And I'm just like, I try to find some way to really celebrate them, that not only do I don't feel any negativity towards them after they told me their story, but that I actually feel more for them after they've told me their story, and that there's a benefit to that, that's how we create closeness.
Yeah, and I've seen research on that. Like we feel like it's weakness to share these things, but if you think about the people that you feel close to, you wouldn't feel close to them if they didn't share these things with you, right? And realizing that is so important, like how strong it is to share these vulnerable things about us. And that is how we get the closeness. Yeah, exactly, Michelle.
Wonderful. So is there anything else that anyone here wants to say to those listening or watching that have mixed feelings about surrogate partner therapy or about cuddling, about any of this? Either they're seeking it out as a client, or maybe they're interested in becoming a practitioner. Just any closing thoughts, any wisdom you want to impart?
So recovery or growth, whatever you want to call the process, recovers being willing to try things that are new and different. There's a classic 12-step slogan that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. And so anyone who's listening to this, who's considering it, I would encourage them to do an experiment, see what happens. And if not this, then something else, because our comfort zone, the more traumatized we've been, particularly in childhood, the more our comfort zone is not really safe or healthy for us. So getting out of the comfort zone in a way that feels tolerable, right? So it's like going a little over what you feel comfortable with. Don't throw yourself in the deep end. Don't do an ayahuasca trip for your first experiment with psychedelics. And so that the process of trying to figure out how one can grow and get out of the comfort zone is not trivial. I'm not saying just do it. I'm saying think about what you're trying to accomplish. Think about what might work. Try to do an experiment where you go a little over what you feel comfortable with, and try to string together a bunch of experiences. If you don't know where to begin, try to string together a couple different experiences. Could be therapy, it could be cuddling, it could be reading a book, because believe me, when I'm infamous with my clients for recommending books. And when my client comes back and they look like they want to vomit, I'm like, oh, got that one, right? Which actually is not a great example of a little test, but nonetheless, reading a book for someone who maybe has never read a psychology book or some sort of self-help book could be another experiment, right? But the whole process of growth requires a willingness to try things we haven't tried before. And when I am speaking of this, I was a licensed therapist for let me see, 3.5 years before I realized the true nature of my childhood trauma. So that was a very rude awakening. I thought I was much farther ahead than I was in terms of my own recovery. And that I'm somebody who, even before I started training as a therapist, I read a lot of books about growth, personality, Enneagram. I thought I had much greater awareness than I actually did. And so at the beginning, we need to be willing. We need to be as the fool, as the tarot reminds us.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And something that really speaks to me when you're talking about comfort zones is something I keep in front of my face, is like, is your comfort zone really comfortable, or is it just familiar? And for me, I'm like, I'm not comfortable with a lot of things that I do every day, but I know them, and there's an unknown out there. But yeah, but maybe there's a better comfort zone. Let's find it, right? Yeah.
For information on surrogate partner therapy, the organizations that first I recommend surrogatepartnercollective.org. They're doing trainings for surrogates. They have their first cohort going right now. IPSA, the International Professional Surrogates Association, also does training. They're another organization that's been around a long time. I'm kind of liking the way that Surrogate Partner Collective is going. That's my number one. EmbraceSPT.org is an organization that I co-founded that is great for clinicians and practitioners, but not for clients necessarily. We are there as a resource group that we're trying to raise funds to help diversify our field because we're very white. So we're getting our nonprofit, and we also want to raise money to help make the work more affordable for people in marginalized communities. And in cuddling, you know, I think you guys probably had that covered pretty well, but of course I always plug Cuddlist. So.
And Michelle, how can people reach you directly? And of course, I would love for everyone to feel free to share any ways that they can be reached, any avenues that they're comfortable being reached at for questions.
Sure. My primary like umbrella website that carries kind of who am I is meetmichellerenee.com. And I'm on social media, most platforms at Meet Michelle Renee.
Thank you.
Yeah. Even the Intimacy Lab podcast, you can find at Meet Michelle Renee. We're on episode 2 is out now. So we're just getting started. I want to get to 30 where you guys are.
Yay.
All right. Awesome. So, I don't know. Does anyone else want to share how we can reach out to you? Just Michelle, or?
You can reach me at marycuddler@gmail.com. That's probably the best way if anybody wants to talk to me. I'm available for podcasts, by the way, if you want someone on your intimacy lab. I love doing these discussions. This is my favorite thing. So
Yeah.
Me too. Love it.
yeah.
Thank you, Mary. Doug, would you like to share how to reach you?
I have a pretty modest web presence, but I'm on Psychology Today, and I actually get almost all my clients from there. So never had my own website so far, an oversight, but yeah, look me up, Douglas Stewart, LPC, Pittsburgh. You'll find me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
How's everyone feeling after doing this interview?
I love these conversations.
Me too.
I feel like we could talk for hours. I feel like the amount of content could just really go, like, honestly, like we might need parts or something.
Definitely. And I have to say, Michelle Renee, I've been wanting to talk to you about this for a long time. So I'm so glad that we got to do this today. And it really like clarified my understanding of what the work is and what's out there. So yeah.
Good. It's a deep topic. I mean, we can't cover it, you know.
I know.
It's meant for, you know, a teaser so that if people want to dig in farther.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I feel the same. I'm really grateful to learn more, to connect with you, Michelle, and we're all honored to have you here today.
I'm glad we got it to work finally, a time that works for everybody.
Yeah.
The stars aligned.
Yay.
So I know Michelle Renee had
I gotta run. Yeah, I got a client I
hard out.
gotta get to.
Yeah.
I know it's early. It's late on your guys. Well, I don't, Mary, I don't know what your time zone is, but
I'm central. Yeah, but it is getting late for me. Well, it's 7.
I got one more to do today. And then I can call it quits for the day, but
very cool.
Crystal, I did email you back about the stuff, and we'll be in contact and whatnot.
I appreciate you. I'm very grateful and very excited.
I'm excited for us to do it. We got lots to talk about. I wish we could. I'm hoping we can record it. I gotta talk to. Yeah.
Lots of good stuff.
Yeah. What a great community to have fallen into when I got into cuddling, right? Like I just
so much.
Yeah. Such a lovely family.
Yeah.
All right. If you're all good, I'm gonna run.
All right. Have a wonderful session.
Bye.
Bye.
Lovely to meet the people I hadn't met before, Doug. Wonderful. Alyssa, I know your face from Cuddlist, but
Yeah.
I know we haven't talked. And Davian, is that how you pronounce it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It was nice to see you briefly. I'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye, Michelle. Oh,
So
bye, Doug, too.
Oh, okay. Bye, Doug. Oops, we didn't get to say bye.
I was gonna make sure I mentioned that I'm very, very excited to say that Mary will be joining me in Pittsburgh for a brief period, and that she will host a cuddle party, and I'll be able to be present with that. I'm working through that training, so I just feel so excited, and I want
Hey, I'm excited for you.
to honor that moment and be like, yes.
It's gonna be fun.
Such a good
Yeah,
community.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, in about a month, almost exactly, actually.
Ah,
Well, couple days, but
I love it.
yeah, I'll be
Gonna be
there
good.
before you know it. Yeah. Do we have a cuddle for this episode?
I have an idea.
Yeah.
Back to back. It's pretty simple, but
Oh, I
I'll
like
still
that
use the
one.
monkeys. I don't know if we've done it before, but I think it's a
Yeah, I
really
don't think
good
we
one.
have. It is a good
It's a
one.
classic.
That,
So
yeah, that's one of my favorites for people that maybe are not feeling they want the intimacy
Yeah.
of like any of the face-to-face or the full contact ones, but you get the support and
Mhm.
and you can still talk, and it actually is so supportive. I really love that one. Especially like two men really love that one if they're like afraid of touching, or well, not afraid. If they are leery about touching other men, it's a really good one to recommend.
I feel that.
and a
Yeah.
really good way you can progress with this, you could do like rocking back and forth
Mhm.
or side to side.
Side to side.
I really enjoyed that, and you can get in the rhythm of each other's breaths. You can feel them breathing. So sometimes you could breathe together, or you could breathe like opposite of each other. You feel the warmth, you feel the support. It's really nice. And yeah, it's a great one to transition into more touch or just on its own if this is where you want to stop and you're like, I'm feeling full, or this is my comfort level. But it's a good one to start with if you're ready for physical contact.
Yeah, I love that.
Right.
It's good to have like a lot different ideas in your toolbox for like how do we move in like a little bit at a time if you're ready for that.
Yeah.
That's a good one, Alyssa. Thank you.
Thank you for
Yay.
sharing.
Yay.
All right. So what's next?
Let's see. So we can talk a little bit about our promotions. We want to talk about coming in, joining the community. We have a lot to offer here at Nurtured Nerds. We have nerd breaks on a weekly basis, where you can connect, play authentic relating games, just sometimes be together, just sort of dance. There's a lot of fun opportunities, and it's different every week. Membership is, again, free. You can subscribe to the YouTube. We are always working on upgrading and becoming more available for you. So things like Discord and Twitch are coming soon. If you're interested, you can find us at facebook.com/nurturednerds or nurturednerds.com, or on YouTube. Just look up Nurtured Nerds and you'll be able to hit that subscribe button. You can email us if the social medias are not your vibe at nurturednerdsnewbies@gmail.com or at nurturednerds@gmail.com. And you can even find us at Meetup or under Meetup via Nurtured Nerds. And so we have that new raffle. When you subscribe or when you go ahead and email us or get onto the mailing list, you do get entered into a drawing, and you can find some free loot, a Nurtured Nerds care package, and that can include a free 30-minute virtual session with participating professional cuddlers after an additional intake screening, a free ebook written by the wonderful Mary right here. It is on cuddling and connection. It is called The Art of Authenticity. And then a free video game gift card, which can be used to download video games. And there is a chance on approval to submit a question for our recordings for the Epic podcast, which we do on a pretty regular basis, I'd say, once a month if we can. Oh, and a discount for the current raid, Jerk Proof Your Relationship, which we're still offering a sliding scale for. And that is by the wonderful Cassandra. Definitely worth taking. The full price is up to $1,500, but you can get a discount on that if you're a member. So please know that's a very, very, very good investment right there. And we're looking to keep designing side quests. So keep in touch with us. That's a lot of info.
Yeah.
Oh, and I know Gita told me earlier, we are going to be having a Nurtured Nerds Halloween nerd break. So I'm not sure if that's going to be on Halloween, or if it'll be the weekend before or after. And we are also planning to come out with a Halloween video to show off some spooky decorations, costumes, and we'll get to do that during the nerd break as well. So we're definitely gearing up for spooky times right now. I know that's one of my nerdiness avenues that I like exploring is Halloween and Day of the Dead, and it's exploring like spookiness, the shadow side of self-expression and death and darkness, and it's a really interesting playground. Yeah, I know we had an episode about this last year. There was a haunted house, a couple that had a haunted house. I wasn't here for that episode, but that was a really awesome episode.
That was a
So
fun
if you
episode.
haven't seen that one, go check it out. It's in our past videos.
Yeah, that was a very fun episode. And I feel very in alignment with what you said about shadow work. I've been working at Scare House, and that is a haunted house in Pittsburgh for any listener that's not aware. And I just feel like, during the spooky season, we're really kind of diving into our fears, diving into our shadow, diving into the concept of death and rebirth. And so I do really love that vibe as well. So thank you for sharing that. Very, very fun stuff.
Yeah. All right. Are we feeling nurtured?
Yeah.
I'm feeling nurtured.
I'm feeling nurtured. We invite you to give yourself a hug if you feel so called. Give yourself all the love and affection that you give someone else when you're hugging them, because you deserve it as well.
I love that. Thank you.
Awesome.
Nice.
Okay, bye.
See you next time on Nurtured Nerds Podcast.
Woohoo, bye.
Happy Halloween.
Bye.
And out. Woohoo. I gotta take this shirt off. I'm hot.
Man, I'm over
You
here.
are hot.
Woohoo, thank you. Yes, I am.
Yeah.